Gutter trash.
Fighters ready. Engage.
1, 2, 3.
Early June, 19...
You win.
You have no dick.
We await your return, warrior. Welcome to the world of Street Fighter 3. Prepare for battle. Well, I got the picture. Yeah, I've been waiting for this. Yeah, I've been waiting for this.
Let's fight like gentlemen.
Fighters ready. Engage.
1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3.
Prepare to strike. Now.
1, 2, 3. Shoot. 1, 2, 3. Gutter trash.
Final round. Now.
Shoot.
You win.
You have no dignity.
We await your return, warrior. Welcome to the world of Street Fighter 3. Well, I got prepared for battle. Well, I got the picture.
Let's fight like gentlemen.
Prepare to strike. Now. await your return, warrior. Welcome to the world of Street Fighter 3. Prepare for battle.
I've been waiting for this.
Well, I got the picture. Are you ready? Go! Prepare to strike. Now! You win. We await your return, warrior. Welcome to the world of Street Fighter 3. Prepare for battle. Well, yeah, I've been waiting for this. Yeah, I've been waiting for this. Are you ready? Go! Are you ready? Go! You win. Battle. Go for it. Prepare to strike. Now! Final round. Go for it.
CM 具合悪いに調子に勝って、こういう方へ行った、優しい男。さあ、先ほどタオルを破った TM。ガスコンから相手は世界チャンプだ。勝て。さあ、リスクはでかいが、リターンの大きい高い背負っていく TM。立て投げ。さあ、流れは TM か。さあ、発動して。コマンドミス。逃がさない TM。一本目は TM。さあ、相手のバックネットを見せたくなった。この辺はやり込み。さあ、うかつに風でいくわけにもいかないが。さあ、今のは例の一瞬で投げ張っていけるってやつですか。あ、対空ミスを発動して、成功でいて。さあ、1段階アップしてるぐらいでは結構笑いたいゲームコンボ。投げていけ。発動して。さあ、このゲームである程度投げるときついがラストは入った。体力をまくって投げていけ。おお、バックジャンプを見せた。CL 完全に寄り勝って3位優勝おめでとうございます。それではいよいよ決勝戦。さあ、第4期でしたね、今回。
Alright guys, it's another Thursday night, and so everyone knows what that means. It's another episode of the Mutant Experience podcast. I am Mutant XP, and tonight I am very happy to have my special guest this evening, Haas from the Lone Star State, Texas. How you doing, Haas?
Good, man. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. Thanks.
So for those of you who are already in the chat, please let us know how we sound. Please let us know how we look, and tell us if there are any issues. And so also, if you have any questions for either me or my special guest Haas, please write them in the chat, and we will try and get to those questions by the end of the show. So Haas, how's it going, man?
Pretty good, man. Pretty good. Thank you. Just excited to be out of work for the day. It's been a long week, so I'm pretty thrilled about the weekend coming up.
So on the show, obviously, we're gonna talk a little bit about Haas and how he came up. Not just playing video games, but also in the FGC. I definitely want to hear some of his stories about Third Strike. For those of you who are new to the game, who are new to the scene, Haas basically came up in the Austin scene of Third Strike. Which is legendary when it comes to the glory days of Third Strike. As far as the Third Strike hotspots go, right when the game came out, it was basically Nebraska. Obviously, some of you saw the episode last week with Eat. Then there was Austin, and then obviously SoCal. So definitely, I'm sure you have some day one stories to tell us tonight, right, Haas?
Oh, absolutely, without question.
And in about a month's time, right? Just about a month away, a little bit about a month away, we have Texas Showdown. I should have done my homework. I told myself to look this up, Haas, but I completely forgot. But what year is Texas Showdown in now?
Oh my God, I want to say, geez, I think the first one might have been 01 or 02. So we're looking at like 15 years. Now, here's the thing about Showdown. There was a time when Javier Moreno, the original TO, was running the show. He started Texas Showdown, and he continued it starting in 2013. There's a period when it was being run, and it was more of like a convention sort of thing with a side of Third Strike or a side of like Major kind of within the convention, and they basically wanted to gain back the whole Major title back and make it a specifically a tournament that has some vendors and stuff at it, but mainly the purpose of it is tournaments for several games and whatnot. And I came back to Showdown in 13 after I realized the hobby came back to run the show, because before that I wasn't really too interested.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah, definitely, and we'll definitely get into the history of Showdown and also what we have planned as far as Third Strike goes this year. For those of you who don't already know, Houston native KD Alpha is sort of the ringleader for
yep.
3S at Texas Showdown this year and last year, and so we'll definitely talk about that. And then obviously we're gonna get Haas's thoughts on the future of the Third Strike scene and the future of old man games in general. I definitely love to hear what you have to say, Haas, about keeping these scenes alive.
Okay. Well, shoot. I mean, where do you want me to start? At the very beginning, I suppose,
Oh
or
yeah, yeah, yeah. Sorry, I thought you had I thought you were gonna say something
no? I'm
specific,
just agreeing. I'm
but
completely agreeing.
but
Please
so
continue.
so let's go ahead and start at the beginning, man. How did you start playing video games?
I
I
mean,
mean, was it something that you did as a kid, or
well, I mean, I got my first Atari when I was like 3. I played a lot of
Mhm,
Pac-Man, a lot of those games and whatnot. But as far as fighting games go, it all started, I think it was like summer of '91.
mhm,
Um, I saw like a Street. I didn't really play Street Fighter 2 when it first came out. I think it was like February '91 when it came out in the U.S. But I didn't really play it until that summer, and I saw people. I think it was like E Honda versus Zangief match, and I was like, this looks kind of. At first, I looked at it, I was like, yeah, this is okay. I don't know about this. I'm not sure about this button mashing that's going on with E Honda or Blanca and stuff like that.
uh-huh,
But I was like, what, I'll give it a shot. And so, sure enough, I did, and I realized that as more and more people started playing it, like the crowds were crazy. Street Fighter 2 World Warrior, of course, was insane. I mean, in the arcade days for its time, it any hotel or mall or any place would have, even gas stations would have like a line of like 15, 20 people playing, waiting to play. So it was big, and it was where the hype was at. And actually, for its time, it was really, really good compared to the first Street Fighter. I played the first one; it was horrible. Part two is a lot better. And so eventually, after I played in arcades from like let's say '91 to like '01. So that falls in the timeline of Third Strike when it first came out. When
mhm,
so basically, I basically played a lot of the mall arcades. For many many years. And I went to tournaments for several games in all the arcades. Um,
mhm,
back then travel wasn't that common, I guess. So really, it was more of a you know play, be the best at your arcade, and then go take on the best at the other arcade, and then start traveling to, let's say, Houston or like within your state and competing there. But I think really for fighting games, Street Fighter 2 started it, and the MK games, I played them all, and then in tournaments and stuff like that. But I went to Einstein's. Okay, so I had gone to Einstein's Arcade, and Einstein's Arcade is where Third Strike started, right? And
mhm. Well,
I
well,
went to.
well, sorry to
No,
cut
go
you
ahead.
off,
Go ahead.
boss, because you're going at breakneck speed here,
Yeah,
and
sorry. Sorry.
I wanna talk more about just because I know it's a Third Strike podcast, but uh, I love talking about World Warrior more, just as much
Okay.
as some other people. But what I caught you say, I caught one of your comments, and you were saying how like they had World Warrior at a gas station.
Oh yeah.
So just a quick question: where was the first? Do you remember the first place you played Street Fighter 2?
Yes, it was an arcade called Laser One. It was in
Okay.
Westgate Mall in Southwest Austin.
Uh.
A Laser One is one of a kind. It was a arcade inside of a mall that
Mhm.
had a theater inside of it. I remember it had like an ice cream shop across the street, but that arcade was very small. It was about, I want to say it's smaller than Einstein's was. Very hole in the wall, very rectangular, very thin arcade.
Mhm.
Um, but it had everything. It had two Street Fighters, one on projection, one on on an actual normal CRT cab.
Uh huh.
It got all the good games ahead of time. I mean, we had early copies, like beta copies. I wouldn't say beta, but like earlier versions of Mortal Kombat that came out there and whatnot. But that's where I started playing Street Fighter 2, and it was the closest location to where I lived. to be able
Uh-huh.
to play regularly.
Yeah, I kind of miss those arcades in the mall, right?
Me too.
Like whenever like, young people if for those of you who are too young to remember arcades in the mall, just watch Terminator 2. Remember remember
Yeah,
that scene
T2
when the
was pretty good.
T1000 goes looking for John Connor?
Oh yeah.
Is it doesn't he play Afterburner in that arcade?
I think it was Afterburner. Yeah, it was one of those sit down moving arcade machines that move with
Oh man.
steering wheel and whatnot. Yeah, it was yeah, that's pretty much how the arcade was. It was very similar. That was a very
Uh,
rectangular arcade as well.
yeah.
Same sort of layout as Einstein's as well. So that was a very popular layout. One machine on either wall, and in the center for people to walk through in and out. Right. So
Yeah. And not to, you don't have to like tell us exactly how old you were, but like around what age were you when
oh,
when Street Fighter
I'm
2
pretty
came
old.
out?
I have no shame. I'm pretty old. So I was 11 in '91. So I started competing in tournaments in Street Fighter 2 when I was 11 years old. I played in
Okay, that
tournaments.
ain't old.
I was the only kid that age. I think there were some
Uh-huh.
kids that were like 13, 14, but they didn't really compete. I guess. I guess it was kind of like a I don't know if they were nervous or something, but I really
Mhm.
wanted to sit down next to somebody and just take them out that was like twice my age, and
Mhm.
and I did. I did. So it was good times.
Mhm. And so, and so how did you get into the FGC? Like, what game was sort of, the gateway for you in terms of the FGC, like competing like competitively in tournaments and stuff?
Third Strike. I mean,
Oh,
given
really?
I played
Okay.
in tournaments before that, right? I played in tournaments
Wow.
before that, but there wasn't really, it was kind of like, you post a sign up at the arcade and
Mhm.
you say, okay, like, okay, it's this date, mark it down on, an actual piece of paper, no cell phones back then. So mark it on a
Mhm.
piece of paper, put it in your wallet or whatever, and be ready for it and show up. But there wasn't really, I mean, everybody was kind of out for themselves back then, everybody was kind of each other's enemy.
Mhm.
There was no sense of like, brotherhood or anything like that back then. It was basically cutthroat. It was all just straight up gangsters and just a bunch of kids. That's all it was. And it was a different time for sure. But Third Strike was definitely the one that kind of did that for us, all of us at Einstein's, because it resurrected the arcade. An arcade that was. Am I cutting too far ahead now, or are
No,
we
no, no,
good?
no. That's fine. That's fine. That's fine.
Okay, so basically, Einstein's Arcade was like the arcade in the mid '90s. Problem though is that it was downtown Austin, and getting to Einstein's Arcade back as a 13 or 12-year-old was pretty much impossible unless you had a friend that had an older brother or your parents were heading in that direction or something. So,
Buses
uh,
are rough, but
yeah, it was rough. It was rough. And back then, the drag was different. UT campus wasn't the same. It was so packed. There was no regulation against sleeping on the streets. There was no regulation against being, begging for money and stuff like that, and on university campus. And actually, to tell you the truth, I liked it the way it was, to be honest. But that's a whole different story we can talk about later. But so, anyways, Einstein's Arcade used to be one of the most I mean, it was the arcade in Austin. And what happened
Mhm.
was, over time, they made some bad decisions, in my opinion. They removed the ST machines too early. They removed a lot of the KI and MK machines too
Mhm.
early, and they didn't even focus too much on SF3. I think they had New Generation, and I think they had a Second Impact cab, but even then, there was only a few players that played NG and Second Impact. So when I went there, the first time I showed up at Einstein since like the mid '90s was like I think summer of '98, and all they had was JoJo's and Alpha 3, and I think Soul Calibur 1, maybe not even that. I think it was Soul
Wow.
Edge, and nobody was there. I walked in the arcade. I was depressed. I was like, what the hell is going on here? Like, where is everybody? Like, this arcade is in the middle of one of the biggest schools in the U.S. and yet there's
Mhm.
three people in here during like prime time on a weekend. A Friday night, three people in the arcade. What the hell is this shit? I'm sorry, pardon my French. I don't know if cursing's okay. But
Oh yeah, you can curse. It's fine.
Okay, cool. Well, so anyways, I was basically I was shocked and I was like, what the heck's going on here? So I like okay, I guess Alpha 3 it is, because nobody's playing JoJo's and basically at the time Slim X actually, as a matter of fact, he was working at Einstein's Arcade. And so basically, when I was playing Alpha 3, I saw him do some pretty sick stuff with Vism combos. He was doing, I think, the Daigo combo and some other Akuma combo in the corner. And I was like, hey man, that's pretty cool. Like, yeah, how are you pulling that off, and what do you use to activate to make that work? And he's like, here, you just do this, this, and this. And so we hit it off from there. It was really just me and Slim X chatting a lot, and at the very beginning of the resurrection of Einstein's because of Third Strike. And so we hung out for a good year at Einstein's. I was there about a couple days a week, and we're there one day, and we're like, what the hell? And so he's playing JoJo's, and they're like, hey man, you have to get off the machine. And we're like, okay, what's going on? So they roll the machine out of the arcade onto the drag, and they basically replaced, the cart and the disc. And we're like, what the hell? And they put a marquee in there, and we see Chun Li on the marquee. And we're like, whoa, hold on a second. And we realized that it was Street Fighter 3 Third Strike. It was, I think it was June. I want to say it was June 18th. It may have been out before that, but we got
Mm-hmm.
it June 18th, 99. And we watched them roll the machine back into the arcade. So I was there literally at
99 or 99? 99,
99.
right?
Yeah, it was June of 99. And we literally watched them roll the machine in. We jumped on it right away. And, we had previous like bad taste in our mouth about previous SF3 games. Like NG wasn't all that good. And, we were
Actually,
SF2.
I want you to talk a little bit more about that, Haas, because to me personally, when NG first came out, like it didn't, it just felt very it felt very unfinished to me,
Yeah, it
right?
feels
It
very
felt very it felt very beta.
yeah, yeah. It's very, and that goes for pretty much every Street Fighter that's been released. I mean, look at World Warrior, right? Kind of, it was good first time, but kind of crappy. You look back at it. Champion
Mhm.
Edition's better. They improved on the tick throw issues and stuff like that, and other problems. But yet there was still a lot of crap in that game that was broken. And then Hyper Fighting was really the first true Street Fighter that was actually good, like really good. I mean, ST's great, but second to ST is easily Hyper Fighting, easily
But
without a doubt. Um,
do you think the stretch from World Warrior to hyper fighting, because and I don't know, you may disagree with me here, but when I play World Warrior and then I play Championship Edition and then I play hyper fighting, I mean, I still feel like I'm playing the same game. It's just different speeds and different moves.
right,
But to
right,
me, like when you play NG, like NG and Second Impact, they're pretty similar.
okay,
But then there's this, to me, there's this huge sort of left turn with
yep.
Third Strike.
Absolutely, hundred
Did
percent.
you sort of feel that when you and Slim X got on the, because presumably you guys had played NG and Second Impact before,
Yes, and
right?
we absolutely despised at the time. Looking back, I don't mind Second Impact so much. As I've
Mm-hmm.
gone through the SF3, but I really despise those games. Like those games turned me away. I was like, why the hell is this game in the arcade, and why is ST gone? That was the main question. And I felt like that's one of the reasons that Einstein's was dying down, because ST brought in so much money, and they got
Mm-hmm.
rid of both. They had two cabs, and they got rid of both of them. And there was no excuse for it. I was like, why remove this when it's making tons of money, but yet
Mm-hmm.
for something newer that may or may not be as good. I mean, of course, bring the new games in, but like if a game's making you money, keep it. And it
Mm-hmm.
was pretty hype. So, anyways, but yeah, I see what you're saying. I mean, the games do feel the same. It's the intricate little things like the broken stuff that's in the games that really change the game. In the SF2 series, the small broken nuances and stuff like that. Like tick throws in World Warrior were nearly impossible to get out of. You have
Mm-hmm.
magic throws and bugs like that in the game that were pulled out of the game in Champion Edition and whatnot. But in NG, it just felt very slippery. It's the best way I could put it. Like when you try to like do like a crouching forward into something, it feels like there's a push away that happens quicker. Like it feels like everything's very slippery. That's the best way I can explain it. I don't know the exact
Mm-hmm.
frame data differences, but I felt like Third Strike was a lot more solid. It felt like a lot more precise. Like it
Mm-hmm.
was a finished product, is what it felt like. So, but at first, I mean, even then, I mean, I'll be completely honest. We didn't like Third Strike at first.
Oh
We're set
wow.
in our old ways. We're set in our old ways. We're like, what are these weird characters? What's going on here? Like, why is this game here? Why isn't Tatsu? Why can't you bait Tatsu into uppercut? Why is uppercut not as good?
Uh-huh.
But then again, that's because of lack of understanding. Obviously, right? We were just very opinionated because we were set in our old ways, and we didn't like the game at first. But you know what? As we got to play it more and more, we started digging and coming up with our own tech and other stuff that was like pretty cool. And we're like, you know what? Like this is interesting. We want to maybe explore this some more. And so, it was basically me and Slim X. I'm dead serious. Like me and Slim X, he'd come over to my house, and we would play like nonstop games in general. But when they
Mm-hmm.
finally released, I think was it W Impact for the Dreamcast? W Impact, it had New Generation and uh, Second Impact on the same disc, right? It was the Japanese import. We paid like
Mm-hmm.
$100 for it at the local store at the time,
Mm-hmm.
and we practiced on that like nonstop. We knew that it wasn't going to be the arcade. We knew that it wasn't going to be even Third Strike, but we knew that we could at least learn the mechanics of the game and understand the fundamentals and try
Mhm.
to improve ourselves and whatnot. And so we did. We played pretty much. He would come over pretty much every other day, and we would just train and look at the old Skillsmith Second Impact videos, and we try to practice those and see like how the counters work. You know, how many juggles you can do before you have to super and stuff like that. Just simple things like that. And yeah, that was pretty much all there was to it. And the game grew from there. And um, I met Shin and those guys through Alt Games SF2 shortly after. When they rolled the machine, and I immediately went on Alt Games SF2. I was like, I'm looking for some comp. Who's down to play some Third Strike?
Mhm.
First person that replied was Shin Chang, and I didn't know his name was pronounced Shin at first. I called him Sien, I think, at first when he went to the arcade. And the first thing he told me was like, "It's Shin," and that's all he said. That's how he talks. And so we played. I mean, I can't tell you how many hours me and him played back to back.
Uh-huh.
Akuma mirrors for like I want to say at least 5 hours a day, every day of the week. He would skip work from AM. He worked at AMD at the time. He would
Uh-huh.
skip work at AMD to come play Third Strike early, and
Wow.
we played from like I want to say 6 p.m. to like almost 2 a.m. in the morning some nights,
Wow.
weekdays
So,
too.
tell me more about that day one though. That day
Okay.
one, that day one Third Strike. So it was just you and Slim
Yep.
at the arcade. So who's the first character that you used in Third Strike? Do you remember?
Well, we were. I mean, of course, Chun Li was the new character, right? So we're like,
Yeah.
oh, we should try Chun, but you know what? We're like, you know what? No, no, no. The first character I actually played, believe it or not, was Q.
Uh,
Yeah, and I was like, this guy kind of reminds me of Darkman. So I was
Dark
like,
Man. Yeah.
the cheesy movie, the really bad movie Darkman. I was like, this kind of
Mhm.
reminds me of Darkman. This guy's kind of cool, like kind of smooth looking. I was like, let's play some Q. So I played Q, and I think he played maybe like Ryu. I think we played some Shotos. Like we played, of course, I played Akuma as well, of course.
Mhm.
But I think the first character I played was Q, and then
Mhm.
but that was just for fun, just pressing buttons and doing whatever. But like Akuma was the first character I took seriously
Mhm.
and played in tournament basically. So
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, I kind of had a similar experience. The first place that I played Third Strike, um, I don't know if I told you this, Haas, but I spent most of my formative years in Southern California,
right,
and I used to play with my best friend Marvin, aka Mr. Universe from the old Family Fun videos. He was a Urian main.
nice,
Um, he was my best man at my wedding, and and we had known each
cool.
other since fourth grade. But anyway, shout outs to Marvin. I know he's not watching this because he's probably busy playing WoW. But I remember the first time I played Third Strike. It was at this arcade that was attached to a bowling alley in Long Beach, California. It was
Yep.
called Regency Fun Center, and at the time, uh, I played a lot of Alpha 3, and whenever people ask me about the Alpha games, I always just use one word to describe it, and the word is silly. Those games are just
Yeah,
silly. Like to me, it's like they're not bad, they're not good, they're just silly. And sometimes silly is fun, but then there are
exactly.
times when you get really tired of silly, you
Yes,
know.
yes, absolutely. Yeah.
So so like the first character I used was Chun, and interestingly enough, like you, because my friend and I were playing Alpha 3, right, in the Alpha series. You know how different Chun is, right?
Oh yeah, way
Like
different.
even the Chun in the Alpha series is not that dissimilar from like SF2 Chun. It's
Right.
basically,
Much
but
closer.
now she jumps, and she's spinning and shit, and it's like all this like weird stuff.
Yeah, Alpha
And,
3
and,
introduced those high jumps, and I just that was
yeah.
the difference for me. But yeah, go on. I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
and I immediately didn't like Third Strike at first. I'm like, dude, this game's weird.
Yeah, weird characters.
Interestingly enough, I never really liked the third series to begin with. It was my friend Marvin, when NG came out, and I think we were in I forgot, we were like freshmen in high school or something. I don't remember, but like. My friend was like, "Dude, they finally came out with SF3." Because remember, in the back in the day, right? It was always, when is Street Fighter 3 gonna drop? When is Street Fighter 3 gonna
Yep,
drop?
that's true.
Right? It was always those rumors. Every April Fool's joke. It was like, when does
Yep.
SF3 come out? And then SF3 finally comes out, and I just never, like you said, right? It just didn't feel polished. It felt kind of clunky to me. It kind of felt sort of like a poor attempt at like the Neo Geo style type fighting game.
Yeah, yeah, I agree.
It felt kind of World Heroes ish, almost.
Got
You
that
know,
Goomba tech.
yeah. But anyway, it was just funny that you say that you didn't like Third Strike at first because I didn't either, and then I just didn't play the game for like 3 years until I went to college at UC Irvine, and then then I saw a lot of people playing it. But anyway, so day one, you and Slim X, you get on the cab. What kind of cab did you have? Was it like a showcase?
It was a
Was it like
showcase, yeah. Yeah, we had showcase cabs throughout
and
the
so
whole Life of
yeah.
Einstein's.
So that first day, how many hours do you think you played Third Strike?
You know,
Or was it just try the game and then
we played a lot. Like we
Uh-huh.
were like, you know what? Like we didn't like it at first, but we're like, you know what? And even after weeks, I still kind of didn't like it. I mean,
Yeah.
but I
Oh, and
still
here's
liked
another. Here,
grinding it.
sorry, but here's another important question. How much was Third Strike when they first wheeled it in there?
How
Was it
much
a
was it?
quarter? Was it a
Oh, it was
quarter or
for
was it
it was
50 cents?
no, actually, it's a good question. That's actually a really good question because Einstein's Arcade was notorious, even for games like Top Skater,
Uh
to
huh.
be 1 quarter.
Uh
I want to say, you know what? I want to say that 3S was 2 quarters of Star One to continue. I'm pretty sure it
yeah.
was. And then
Yeah.
they toned it down once they got two machines. They toned it
Hmm.
down to one each.
Okay. All right. So yeah. So you played the game, didn't really like it, and but then you eventually just kind of started, sort of warming up to the game. I guess is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I mean the thing is like for some reason it was just like this weird like I don't know how to explain it like this weird cohesion like it was like the mix of like just going back. I mean keep in mind the arcade was dead even when Third Strike came out. The arcade was dead. Nobody was there. It was just
Hmm.
like when Shin came along it was just like me, Shin, Slimex, Peter Ong, maybe Ellen, and maybe Crandall, who was like the Don King of our time. He was like the true commentator. He's in prison now, but he was like the commentator that was
Oh.
hyping everybody up, and he's the reason that a lot of us kept going back to Einstein's
Hmm.
because he had the kind of the bullshit and the charisma that we loved, you
Hmm.
know. And so like every day, like we are like, you know what, like this guy, even though his arcade's dead, this guy's kind of funny. I'm gonna come back and see what this guy has to say tomorrow, you know. And so he was actually a big part of it. And honestly, I hate to say this, and I mean maybe some people actually no, they'll agree with me. He was the reason. He was the glue that brought us all together for Third Strike.
Uh-huh.
He was the one that hyped it up for all of us, that made it more special than we thought it was at the time. And he was an Alex player actually, and the reason I play Alex now is because of him. So because once he went to prison, then we had no Alexes anymore. I was like, well, I'll pick him up and see what happens.
Wow,
Yeah,
that's rough.
yeah, he was already on his third felony. His third felony was the one that put him
Oh,
in prison. So I could go into that, but that's a whole different
yeah.
story. It's kind of off tangent, but
So how is it in Texas? Like third felony, it's done. They just throw away the key, or
I think it's 25
it,
to life, I think, but for some
man,
reason
it's rough.
he's in for I think 40 something years.
40 years?
Yeah, because the thing is,
Damn.
I looked him up online on Google, right?
No
And I saw
parole? No parole? No chance of
he
parole?
here's the thing. Here's the thing. He's got no nonviolent crimes, okay? All the crimes that he's done,
Oh
nonviolent, no
man.
weapons, okay? No weapons, no nothing on him, right? No drugs, no weapons, right? But yet he's got 40 something years for a third felony. But yet you've got rapists in the same state, right? Here, that get off with that shit in like 3 months. Like, where's the logic in that?
Yeah. I
Right? Where's the
mean,
logic? I mean, he has not laid a hand on anybody. If anything, we felt safer with him around. But he was, a little bit shady when it came to like, stealing laptops and stuff like that. But as far as
mhm.
like the community, he was like the person that was like he was our true commentator. He was the kind of like the I wouldn't say coach, but he was the one that kind of egged on people to kind of get better and stuff. And really, if he wasn't there, I'm pretty sure it would have died. And actually, after he went to prison, the arcade did kind of die off a bit.
Mhm.
So really, he was the person that kind of brought it all together for us.
Mhm.
That combination of him plus the new game Third Strike plus it being UT campus with a bunch of students, it just kind of slowly one person would come in and then they would meet some people. We were very friendly. We were very open-minded with having more people play. We'd tell them, hey, we learned this yesterday. It's a new game, but don't do this because that's not good to do. Try this instead. There was no frame data back then, at least on our end. So we were just like, if you use this a bit earlier in this situation, at this spacing, then you won't have to worry about that punish, etc. So we would, and people would be like, oh, "That's cool, man. I appreciate it," and they would be glued because they were happy that people were helping each other out, and we were kind of like, very open-minded about giving tech away, and because the more tech we share, the better we get as ourselves, right? Or
Mhm.
we get ourselves. So they just kind of slowly built and built and built to where our tournaments would have like 30 something people. I mean, it was crazy, man. Like it was, and then we would have people sitting on top of the cabs
So
during tournaments.
so how long before Third Strike first came to Einstein's did you start having regular tournaments? Like, was it pretty quick? Because I know you had said that you had, hooked up with Shen, and then you guys started playing a lot. And so roughly how long did it
About a
take for
month.
you guys? For about a
About
month?
a month. Yeah. So
About a
so
month. Okay.
yeah, what happened was Javier Moreno, actually, same guy throwing Texas Showdown, same
Mhm.
TO that we're talking about for Showdown here.
Mhm.
We were talking about some stuff on the news groups, All Games SF2, and the
Mhm.
Capcom channel on IRC. And Javi's like, Austin ain't shit. Houston's where it's at. We're gonna take you guys down. Come to our turf and play on our cabs, and we'll take you out. And we're like, oh, really? Okay, we'll see what happens. Because they were the kings. They reigned supreme when it came to Second Impact. They reigned supreme when it came to New Generation. The only person that we had that was really good at Second Impact or NG was BBH, BBH and Fu. Fu was the main guy that was really good. And actually, Shin played Second Impact, but he wasn't that good at all. He was actually really bad. They called him, I think, Sweater Boy or something like that back then because he used to wear long sleeve shirts in the summer heat.
Sweater
But
boy.
yeah, I mean that wasn't my nickname. It was Peter Ong was the guy that named him that, and Peter Ong was more of a he was the first real troll I've ever experienced in my life. I think a real life troll. He would basically do things like just hit Fierce Punch all day with Chun Li just to piss you off. He
Uh-huh.
wouldn't use anything else, and he would just not even move the stick and just press Fierce Punch and be like, "This game sucks. This game's broken. I'm just gonna piss you off just to piss you off," sort of thing. He did it just to get kicks. But yeah, so basically Javier was talking smack on All Games SF2, and it wasn't like anything too brutal. It was just like, hey, we're better than you. Let's play. Let's have an Austin versus Houston tournament. And we're like, okay, bring it. So we basically found out what Juan and Javier and those guys played. Javier's Chun, Juan was a Necro Ibuki player. And we basically said, okay, we sat down on the stools they had there. We're like, okay, what can we do to prepare for this tournament? What do we have that they don't have? Do we have some information, some tech that they don't have that we can pull out at the tournament? And so we did. We had a ton of it. I mean, from all the stuff that me and SlimX researched and discovered on week one and week two, uh, we shared all that with Shin and everybody else that was playing in the tournament. Fu, I think Larry was there. Jack Lee, the first like Ibuki, like the first really recognized Ibuki in the U.S. It was good times, and so basically we went over there and we Adam, the guy who's in prison I mentioned earlier, the guy that's kind of like our Don King,
Mhm.
he was down there and he was basically spouting off, and those guys just loved him. They absolutely loved it, and they were cool with us too. Like they were it was very friendly like relationship. Like we thought that we're going to their turf. It's going to be like old times, like mid '90s, early '90s. Nobody
Mhm.
talks to each other. It's just like cold blood, like cutthroat. But it wasn't like that at all. It was actually very, very inviting. They were really cool. Um, Javier was still salty as hell, man. He was still like the type to go in on us. He's the one that kind of instigated the whole thing over the news groups, and really it was like, I mean, shoot, it was July it was July 1999 when we played in Houston at Sharpstown Mall, and we won. Shin took first. I think Juan got second. Fu got third. I think I got sixth. I got sixth at that tournament, and out of like I think it's like 32 people, 34 people. I can't
Mhm.
remember, but it was good. It was good times, and so basically I talked to Slim X about it. He was working at Einstein's at the time. We're like, okay, hey dude, like let's go ahead and get an Einstein's tournament going. So I'll talk to Javi. I'll contact him through the Capcom channel and IRC, and we'll just kind of set up another tournament. And so I think 2 months later, I think it was, we set up our second tournament.
Hmm.
And they came to our turf this time, and they liked our cabs better. We had, only one cab at the time, but they liked the fact that our sticks were in better shape than theirs and stuff like that. So they came up, and I remember it was actually kind of funny because when they came up to Austin, like you have to understand, like the people that were on UT campus, they're students, right? Typical students, kind of clean cut, just in general. The Austin's kind of weird in general, but like the students that would come in there are very clean cut, very just kind of plain. And then you have these guys come in with like these flannels with like the button up, the button the top, with the flannel out. They have the tears
Hmm.
tattooed on their face. They got the hardcore, braided hair in the back, shaved heads, straight up cholos, man, coming in the arcade, and they looked hardcore, like really hardcore. And so all the kids, it was funny watching it because I already knew these guys from the previous tournament, so we're all cool. But like all the people that didn't see them or meet them before, they're all like, "Oh God, are we gonna be safe here? Are we okay?" And it was so funny because they were so scared, and I couldn't stop laughing. But they were cool as shit, man. Those guys were the real deal. They were really good players, and really it just made us all better in general. Like the rivalry between Houston and Austin was huge,
Hmm.
and it's come back again. I mean, and it's what started everything. I mean, I'm pretty sure that like I don't think anybody was really taking the game seriously back then except for Texas, right? I traveled to the West Coast. I went to Sunnyvale Golfland summer of 2000,
Hmm.
and I went to try to find some competition there. And like one guy, I think his name was Quincy. He was like, "Hey man, like, so you play Third Strike? You want to play?" I'm like, "Yeah." I was like, "Is John Choi here?" Because I know John Choi plays at Sunnyvale Golfland. And like,
Uh-huh.
well, if you want to play John Choi, you have to beat me 10 times. And I was like, and I heard this. It's funny you mentioned this because I heard the same thing on the Eat stream last week, right? But I don't know what it is with the West Coast and like boss battle stuff. But like it was a beat me 10 times and you can play. You can get John Choi's number. I'll give you his direct phone number. I'm like, okay, no problem. So I beat him 10-0, and I got John. I was with family, and I was in San Francisco by that point. I had to leave,
Hmm.
and I was able to pick me up. But I'm pretty sure that our tech was so ahead of the West Coast at the time that we could have, even our worst players could have taken anybody at that arcade at the time. At the time.
So
So
that's actually something that I think this would be a good time for a break, Haas, because so basically what happened in Third Strike in Texas. I guess what you're telling me is that as you guys were learning the game, you kind of started with a kind of in-state rivalry, Austin versus
absolutely.
Houston, and in the process of you know learning the game, you guys made each other better. And so when we get back from the break, I want to talk a little bit about interstate rivalry because you kind of brought it up already. That you had
Hmm.
went to Sunnyvale in 2000. Um, you probably went to the wrong place in Cali.
I think so. I think so. I
um,
mean, that's
but
very
but it's
clear.
it's understandable because Sunnyvale has always been the capital of Street Fighter in
Right.
California because that's kind of you know at an old on an old House of Strike show, we had Joe Flores, aka CPS4, on the show, and he's a longtime FGC member from the NorCal region, and he was telling us a really cool story about how he got Third Strike in beta. How they were able
Hmm.
to play Third Strike like beta in Sunnyvale because a lot of the test Street Fighters, were available in Sunnyvale. That's how they would sort of get players to test it. But when we come back from break, I want to talk a little bit about how this sort of interstate rivalry kind of morphed into or how this in-state rivalry sort of morphed into an interstate rivalry, and kind of your experiences, traveling, and just your just kind of what you saw, from your perspective in terms of, some of the rivalries that started to emerge in the early 2000s. Um,
Okay.
and
Sounds good.
so let's go ahead and take a short break. And when we come back, we'll have more of Haas. So don't go anywhere, guys. Alright, guys, this is Mutant XP back with the Mutant Experience, episode 8. And tonight's podcast, we have special guest Haas from Texas. And so, for those of you just joining us, Haas is in the middle of story time here, telling us about the rich history of Third Strike in the Lone Star State. And so, before we went on break, Haas, you had talked a little bit about, Third Strike getting introduced, to the Texas players, and how the sort of initial rivalry was sort of in state, between Austin and Houston. And so now I want you to tell me a little bit about what you know about the interstate uh, rivalry. In terms of Cali versus Texas, versus I don't really know if Texas really had much of a rivalry with Nebraska. But definitely the main one was SoCal, Texas, right? As far as Third Strike goes.
Yeah, and a lot of that rivalry was more, I guess, it fermented more when I had basically stopped going to arcades and had focused on, college, and
Mm.
I had taken a 10-year break after like '01 to 2011. I didn't play it at all in
Oh wow.
arcades.
Okay.
It was a long time. I'd focused on life, school, graduating, that sort of thing, and
Uh huh.
um, so I missed out. But my source was still Slim X. Slim X had, he had moved around, and worked for different gaming magazines and stuff like that. But
Uh
like
huh.
he was still there. He worked there after my time, and so did Sin. Sin was the one player he was the first Texas UN player, actually, first Texas UN,
Uh huh.
and he's been there since the very beginning. And he knows everybody from every generation of Austin Third Strike,
Uh huh.
and he would fill me in. And he's a close friend of mine, so we'd spend time, like, we'd hang out like every other weekend or something like that. So you'd be like, hey, guess who got good? And you won't believe who's placing at Evo and whatnot. And I was like, wow, it's crazy. And so he would give me all the detailed info and whatnot. So he was basically my kind of like my ear to what was going on in the scene.
Uh huh.
And but yeah, I mean, as far as international stuff goes, I know that, like you mentioned on break, V4. I didn't know. I forgot that Vi had won that one. You had mentioned to me, and that's I thought Shin was undefeated until SBO, but I guess I'm wrong. I guess I wasn't there before, though. I
Uh
missed
huh.
that one. I think Slim X was there though.
Uh huh.
But I missed that one for sure. I
And,
wasn't it before.
and actually, for those of you who are like super interested in really, really, really old Third Strike, shout outs to Psycho Chronic. Brett Navarro, aka Psycho Rarity. I think that's the name of his YouTube channel. Uh, old school player, still travels, takes the mega bus to go to majors, cosplays. Brett's a really cool guy. But before the Shen, because when people think Third Strike videos, automatically people think the Shen, right? But it wasn't even him who started this. It was really Brett. It was really Psychochronic, because he was the one who really started sort of collecting FGC videos, and he has a lot of really old Third Strike footage on his channel. I'm gonna go ahead and just type in the name of his channel in the chat. So basically, it's Psycho Rarity. Um, and so for any of you who want to like check out, really old school FGC videos, I'm talking about the stuff that was on VHSs, right? The stuff
Yeah.
that you could only get physically. You know, Brett, he's really the lifesaver because those things have a lifespan, and for him to like, he was really the first one to start like digitizing them and making sure that they last. But for those of you who are interested in really really old Third Strike, go to his channel. And I thought it'd be really neat since you say you don't remember the match. Uh, Haas. I thought maybe we could watch some of the grand finals between Shin and Alex Valle.
Yes. Let's watch that.
You
Yeah,
down
I
with
want
it?
to
You
see
down
it.
for that? So
Yeah, absolutely.
there's a lot of videos on Psycho Chronic's channel, from before between Shen and Alex. And I'm not really sure what the order is. But here's one video, and so let me just go ahead and fire it up here, and then we can go ahead and watch it. Okay. So apparently, I think in grand finals, Shen opted to go with Yang.
What the hell? Wait a second. Hold on a second. I had never seen this before. Like he had never played this character in the arcade. I can
and
guarantee you, I was there every day.
and Valle decided to use Chun. Not really sure about the uh the history behind this video, but let me go ahead and make it a little bigger here.
It's
So
so
yeah,
weird
that's
watching Shin play Yang. It's weird.
this is now remember guys, this is a year, this isn't even a year after America has gotten the game. So
Right.
you know, let's keep the trolling and the negativity to a minimum, guys. You know, let's have some perspective here, right? That's what I don't understand about the FGC. That's what I don't understand about the FGC, Haas. You know, you don't see like LeBron James going on, going on Twitter and throwing shade at George Mikan. You know what I mean? Like, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, I don't really. Well, why is the FGC different? I mean,
Oh man.
you know.
I don't know.
But anyway, this is I know you're sort of mesmerized by this video because you don't remember ever seeing it.
No, he must have been training this on Dreamcast without our knowing, because I don't remember him ever playing Yang, ever in the history of playing. I must have played hundreds of hours against Shin. Not one time did he ever pick Yang. Not once.
But you know what's so impressive about Shin's Yang is that, he sort of understood what the meter was for. He understood that, hey, SA2 by itself is kind of shitty. And that a taunt too at the end.
That was common. Austin just taunted, not as disrespect back then. We would actually just throw him out, just for the hell of it.
Really?
At the end of the round. It would, had no maybe, I mean, but you never know with Shin. Shin might have been trying to disrespect there. You can never guess what he's thinking.
All right, so that was one round, and that was one game, and here's the next game here. So I think Shen took that first game, right?
Yep.
And I love the jab colors, man. Nobody uses the OG colors. Everyone's got to use OG colors. Look at that, Red Perry in 2000.
Yep.
All right, nobody should throw shade at Valle ever.
No, he's a great player,
that red, and there's no
well.
way that Red Perry could have been accidental, right? No way. I mean, maybe, but it just wouldn't make sense for him to press forward after blocking the low forward.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
What would you do at that range by tapping forward and hitting something?
Yeah. Wow, can't believe this footage is like 17 years old.
I know. Believe it or not, that VHS-C recording is not the worst. I've seen much worse.
Yeah, this is pretty good. And everyone in the chat, feel free to, chime in, share your comments about this video.
Because at this point, I was the only person playing Yang in the arcade.
Oh, okay.
I was the Yang main at the arcade, Unsigned arcade at the time. So I don't know. I can tell you for a fact, he played Yun, he played Akuma. That was it.
It doesn't look like Valle knows how to hit confirm though. But that obviously would come later.
I think back then Chuns were more concerned with hitting Fierce Punch and like back fierce.
Oh, look how much damage he's doing. I distinctly remember, I think there was like an SRK feud or a debate surrounding this video. I don't quite remember, but I distinctly remember something like that. Yeah, Shin's Yang is still better than my Yang. That's what Katie says.
Shin he's just the way he thinks is just different. You know what I mean? He's got that little bit of oomph.
But to me, these videos are so fascinating, Haas, because the game is so young, and the mindset is different because, for the new players, right? Season 1, Season 2, Street Fighter 5, like you don't even give the players time. It's like you give them about like a year and then the game changes. So like if you know that the game is gonna change, that's gonna alter your approach. You know what I mean?
Yeah. How much time do I want to invest in this character? How much do I want to really stick with this guy? Like even if you're a character loyalist, like will my character be worse than what he already is right now if he's already not that good?
Yeah.
For his time, it's like those sort of questions arise.
And I think that's the thing that I dislike the most about real games, about newer games. it just throws character loyalty out the window, sort of.
It really does. It does, and I think that yeah, it just there's a lot of stuff that is not working as intended in fighting games that turns out to be awesome tech.
Hmm.
Like not to stray away from Third Strike at all, but like Alex had this tech in SF5 where he would actually do a blocked chop, right?
Hmm.
And after the chop, he had one frame to even on block to cancel it into a suplex. And
Hmm.
basically, I mean, it was like they patched it out right away. I mean, the next patch that's coming out in April is patching that out completely.
Hmm.
And the thing is, like, I feel like that tech isn't too detrimental to making him that much better of a player, considering
Hmm.
he's like kind of like mid low anyways in
Hmm.
SF5. So like I figured that sort of intricate tech makes the game more fun. It's like, well, do I want to take the risk? Like it's the last bit of the round.
Hmm.
He's blocking, and there's no way to chip except for if I have super or critical area. So do I
Hmm.
want to try this tech and risk the one frame timing, or do I want to just block?
Oh my
And so
gosh.
like they take that out of the game.
Uh-huh.
Oh man, that was close. That was shins too.
Uh-huh.
But the thing is, like they take that stuff out of the game, and I think that's in my opinion, that's not game breaking because it's not like you're plinking your way to get the one frame link. It's not like you're doing an option select to
Hmm.
really make it safe. It's like it's actual like raw tech that I don't I just it's in my opinion I guess, but like I disagree with patching that sort of stuff out of a game if it's within a reasonable balance, I guess.
Yeah, these red parries are definitely not accidental.
No, 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 no,
That was
not
the
in fact,
third red parry that Valle did.
absolutely,
Yeah,
yeah,
and back to what you were saying before, Haas, like how this is pre-frame data. It's like you see things that normally you could punish, but obviously it's so new, and you can only rely on the eye of the tiger. You know what I mean?
right.
Like, and so like for example, Alex would use crouching roundhouse, and you can punish that with Yang standing short EX slash. But obviously, it's a work in progress. They're not gonna, you gotta sort of, it's with reps. No one has frame data and stuff like that. So yeah, so here's so I wasn't really paying attention. I think I'm not sure what the score was. I think it's like 2-2 or something. But I'm just totally, I don't know if about you, Haas, but I'm totally enjoying watching this because
Oh, absolutely,
this is
it's
so,
great.
yeah. But yeah, you seem pretty shocked because you don't remember Xian ever using
No,
Yang.
no, I mean, unless there was some sort of secret
Uh huh.
lab that there was going on where he trained on Dreamcast Third Strike, like in his wherever he practiced, like at his house or something like that.
Uh huh.
This is not something that he was doing at Einstein's. I mean, he might have. I mean, during the daytime before I would come in, I'd see him there sometimes. There's a
Uh huh.
chance that he would play Yang here and there, but not like this. Not like
Yeah.
tournament. Not like regular play. It was very like it was straight up Akuma, straight up Yun.
Oh, what?
Whoa!
What?
Just did it.
Wow.
Was that
Really?
enough to chip? I can't tell. I
No,
don't
it
remember
wasn't.
seeing.
Nearly
Okay,
no, was it?
man.
Wow, Vi. That was a Miss Chloe moment right there. Um. All right, let me just play the next one. So remember, guys, if you're interested in watching these videos again, go to Psycho Chronic's channel, Psycho Rarity. I'll type it into the chat again, and show Psycho Chronic some love. He was the Shen before the Shen before the Shen started. Um, but yeah, I haven't really been keeping score. What I do know is that Shen switches though. He switches to I think he switches to Goki
Okay, yeah, that
in,
sounds more like
in the final game. I think this is 4 out of 7. Actually, I think this is best of 7. But
that's a pretty long grand finals, right? I mean, is
see,
that
these are just fundamentals, Haas. Vi knows the good buttons.
he does, he does.
Third strike is timeless, man. Like, at least that's what I think. He
It
just
is.
find your good buttons, figure out what works and what doesn't. But obviously, the tech hasn't been discovered yet. Oh my God, he's so consistent with those parries.
And it was such a brave parry. I mean, if he had dropped that, he's on the ground again in the corner
Yeah,
against another EX mix-up, right? I
yeah,
mean, that's just brave. I get you got to respect the cojones on this guy
yeah.
for doing that.
So how come there wasn't a whole lot of Chun in Austin? Hoss? I mean, that's a
You
good
know,
question because she's
you
super
know,
OP. I mean, she's got 2 meters. Like, no one really decided to. I mean, Fubar later, but he's like later, right? Like he's like a few years after you first got Third Strike, right?
did he just crouching jab in a number 2 super?
Yeah, he
Like,
did.
you see the scaling on that shit?
Yeah.
It's like it scales so shitty anyways. It was like even worse. Oh my
Oh
god.
my God,
Okay,
what's
but
gonna
yeah.
happen here? What's gonna happen here?
Oh man.
Oh yeah, well,
Okay, now
well.
okay, but yeah, sorry. Ask the same question again. I'm sorry.
Oh yeah,
I
but
didn't mean
how?
to-
You had mentioned that there weren't a whole lot of chuns in Texas, but why not?
Honestly, I think what it was is when Peter played Chun at the beginning, he was like showing how at the time how broken it was and how you could just hit Fierce Punch all day and win. And I think that I think honestly, he spread a negative connotation with the character, I guess. I'm not saying that people are like easily swayed and affected by that, but I
Mm-hmm.
think that people just didn't feel like it was a fun character to play. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, like, it just, she's very, I don't know. I mean, there's
Yeah.
there's technical stuff to her, but she's very boring by compared to some other characters in the cast, right?
Mm-hmm.
So people wanted to play to have fun and not so much to win with that sort of
Mm-hmm.
win that way. I guess people had more pride. They at the time they didn't really care for winning the easy way.
Yeah.
They wanted a challenge.
So here's Shen using a more familiar character to Third Strike fans, which is Goki. Um, but both Yang and Goki, man, they bleed. And let's see how this match unfolds here. That was accidental red parry. That had to have been.
Yeah, yeah, that definitely was. See, I
So
think Shin's doing a great job of like he's staying airborne a lot. You know what I
yeah.
mean? And he's
Mm-hmm.
not. She doesn't have meter, and he's not getting hit by her like the damage she can put out on the ground. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So now he's a little bit more careful. He's not.
Yeah.
He's jumping away. He's not really. Well, he is going in actually.
Yeah. Javi's like Chun was boring in all caps. That's why no one played her.
So you know what? I take that back. Remember, I did mention Javier Moreno was a Chun main back then.
Mm,
But then again, that was Houston, and that wasn't really an Austin thing. So I
mm.
mean, I don't know. But even then, it was still very, very scary. So we had one Chun at I think at the first tournament, and we had
Oh, the walk back.
uh,
That shimmy, the oldest shimmy in record.
Street
That,
Fighter 5 got
this is one of the oldest shimmies ever recorded. Whoa, what was that?
Shin. I'm surprised he always gets his way with demons.
I remember watching this video. Then they switched to some live action. You'll see a footage of Valle, when he was 100 pounds soaking wet, and Shin. Wow.
The wife beater going
Yeah.
down.
And yeah, that was it. Wow,
Interesting.
that was a great blast from the past, Haas.
I,
That was
honestly, I don't think I've ever seen that.
really wow.
I don't think I have. No.
Yeah. So so now that we've watched a little bit of Shan versus Valle, you said that you kind of left Third Strike right when like the interstate stuff was happening.
Yeah, around that time, I had just finished my work at community college in Austin, and I had moved to San Marcos to pursue my major. And so basically, that was at least anywhere between 45-minute drive, depending on traffic, could be an hour to Austin.
Hmm.
And the thing is, like my classes, well, I mean, I would study on average about 6 hours a day. Okay, so like with that much studying, there's no way in hell I could fit Third Strike the way I was doing,
Hmm.
And I lived 5 minutes from Einstein's back when I was living there. When I lived in Austin, I was 5 minutes away from the arcade, maybe 10 tops.
Hmm.
Now it's like an hour away. I've got 6 hours studying a night at least, minimum. 2-3 hours a night.
Mm.
And I was like, you know what? I've been cooped up, running the Diablo 2 ladder and running the Third Strike. I was doing both simultaneously, the
Mhm.
Diablo ladder and I made a lot of money on my character, by the way, back then. But Diablo ladder and Third Strike arcade scene, and I was basically not. I didn't have any social life outside of that, and I realized that it was time to, with this college change and the university change, it's time to just be more one with people, I guess, and kind of. I mean, even that. And here's the thing: that town had nothing that was good arcade wise. They had a diversions that had like a broken 2i machine,
Mhm.
Second Impact, and it had MVC1, and like that was it. It was like crap. So
That's
like we didn't have anything down there.
that's the real struggle.
It was a real struggle, and it was actually kind of depressing because you're sitting there and you're like wondering like, damn, like I could be getting better at this game. I could be training. I'd be trained normally. Like I would love to have I don't know, maybe had a scene down in San Marcos, but nobody cared. And, you know, not everybody had a Dreamcast, I guess, at the time. And so it was just a big mess. It was just, it was a sad time for me, but it was also a good time, to kind of get that stuff over with and move on. And, yeah, I mean, I missed out on a lot of good stuff. I missed out on a lot of the Evos. I missed out on a lot of the stuff that like when Mopreme, for instance, Mopreme, like he was, starting around the time that I had stopped, right?
Mhm.
When I was going out to San Marcos, and he he rose so quickly. Like I think me and a few other guys, like we were all the same age. At least like I want to say 8 or 9 of us basically took off and went to college. And so basically, the new generation of Third Strike players, like you had Mopreme was the first of his generation, and then you had Fubar came after. I think his group was like him, Fubar, and a couple other guys, and then so basically those guys were holding it down in that middle time period, that dead time that I was not playing, and
Mhm.
then you had like guys like Marcus, the boogie player, and those guys, which were about a few years after that, and so basically it was like different generations of players, and it really the determinant factor of the generations of Third Strike players was when you finish college, basically. So
Yeah.
like once they finish college, they're like, okay, I'm going back to my family in California, or I'm going back to East Coast, or I'm going to back to China, to go live there again. And
Uh-huh.
so basically people would just leave. I mean, it was like, so basically it wasn't like we all just decided, hey, like we're tired of Third Strike. It was more of like a depressing like reality, like damn, we're getting older. It's time to move on with our lives. But we wish we had an arcade that was still as good as Einstein's where we live, but we don't.
Mhm.
So it's one of those things. So
Yeah, it's because really, that lull that you talk about, when you move to San Marcos, I mean, that's kind of when I came up, you know, like, I like I told you, I played Third Strike when it first came out, but I didn't like it, and then it wasn't until like 2000, late 2002, 2003, that I started playing it, that I picked it up again and I started playing seriously. But that was kind of like when, like, I remember the earliest videos that I used to watch were videos by Slim X,
yeah,
the Slim
yep,
X combo videos.
yep.
Um, and to me it was like, Slim X made the videos that were cool, and then Mopri made the videos that were useful.
Hmm. Yeah,
So
yeah.
I feel like,
And
something that you Texas players don't get a lot of credit for is, you were really one of the first, because like you were mentioning earlier in the podcast, Haas, the old FGC was very kind of secretive about their tech. Everyone was kind of, looking out for themselves, and they were just sort of, it was sort of cutthroat. I think that was the word you used. But to me, whenever I saw like videos like about Third Strike stuff, like it was never SoCal putting it out. It was never New York putting it out. It was never, Nebraska putting it out. It was Texas.
oh yeah,
Slim X with his combo videos, Mopreme with his tutorials. I remember he had that link video where he showed all the
yes.
different links you could do in Third Strike.
Hmm.
And obviously you can't speak for those guys, obviously, but why do you think those type of videos, rather than hide the tech, they were trying to sort of put the tech out there. Why do you think it came from your state and your scene?
Well, I think because we were just so engraved into the game. Like I think what happened was, we weren't. I guess I didn't mean to put it in a too secretive way, but like the things that we would pull out would be stuff that people would pull out like at the Evo. You know what I mean? It's not like they're hiding the general tech,
Mhm.
just that there's a setup that nobody knows about yet,
Mhm.
and we're pulling it off, and we're going to pull it off in tournament. But like, I think the reason they shared the information is that, well, I think the first person to really pioneer it first and foremost was SlimX, because he's the one that translated all the Japanese documents for
Mhm.
us. He was the first. He was the very, very first person to share all the tech.
Mhm.
The Genai Jin tech was SlimX's, I believe. And I believe,
We
okay, so
we gotta have
Urian,
Slim on a podcast, man. I
yeah,
mean,
he's got, I mean, he's got all sorts of stuff, and his technical background is good in every fighting game that he plays. He's a library of information, and the thing is, like,
maybe we can have a live podcast, a Texas
yeah, I
Showdown with
mean,
if he's willing to come out.
yeah, that would be great. I mean,
Yeah.
he's Slimax is always down for that sort of thing. I mean, I don't want to, again, I want to speak for him, but like he went through the trouble of like basically translating all the Japanese
Mhm.
text that he found on the websites at the time, the Japanese websites, and he basically showed us Karathros. Karathros are Slimex's translation. Urian's tackle tackle headbutt, all that stuff was Slimex's translation for us. I think some of the Gaijin tech, I think maybe that was Mopreme. I can't remember if it was Slimex or Mopreme, but like they both worked together, and actually him and Slimex would constantly work with each other on certain things. Like when Mopreme went to Japan and came back,
Mhm.
one of the first people he talked to was Slimex about some of the tech that he found, and they would work together, and it was very cohesive, like very inviting. Like it was. See, the thing is, like the way the guys looked at it was that it's okay to keep some tech for like let's say last minute stuff for like a tournament, but like as a general whole, as things were growing and getting bigger, and it wasn't just arcade versus arcade in the states anymore. It was like you said, international versus or I mean just within the U.S. versus each other, and basically they just wanted to share the data. I mean, they're the types of guys that that would be willing to do
Hello. I think
because they
we.
share their information.
Okay. Sorry.
Sorry, sorry.
You cut out a little bit there. Sorry.
Sorry. It might have been my maybe Time Warner's doing some crazy stuff. But yeah, so yeah, Mopreme and Slimex are the type of guys that are willing to share that information, and they're very good about passing the tech around. Like even in our first two tournaments, like when we pulled out something crazy, the guys in the tournament would be like, "Hey, like what is that?" And we would actually explain it to them, like in the tournament. Like this is what we're doing. This is how you beat it.
Mhm.
And we would tell them in the tournament how to beat the setup.
Mhm.
And so it was up to them to adjust. But if you think about it, giving them the tech in the tournament is also part of the meta, right? It's like, are they going to adjust to it? Should I use it now? Stuff like that. So,
Mhm.
but the thing is, like, really, it's just their personalities. What it comes down to, we had the right people that delved into it deeper than others. They weren't too proud. They were willing to share. They're just good human beings. And really nice stand-up dudes. So I mean, I think it has a lot to do with that combination of the type of person they were, the experience they had, the fact that things were growing. They realized that it was important to improve themselves by sharing the information to make themselves better as well.
Mhm.
So I think that's what it comes down to.
Yeah. I definitely. I think Slim X and Mopreme they really sort of inspired me because I actually very early on when I was playing Third Strike, I put out a tutorial video. I don't know if it's gone. I can't even find it. I can't even find my own copy. I don't even know where the hard drive is, and it's like the dumbest tutorial video. Now that I look at it, I'm so embarrassed to like even talk about it. But but my friend and I made this low forward reversal video.
Okay.
So basically we we recorded basically everything you could do to Ken or Ryu or or Sean or Goki. We basically recorded everything you could punish block low forward Shoto with.
Okay.
I don't know. See, you don't even
That's not
remember
bad. I mean,
watching
for
that,
its time, that's
but
not out of the question. It's legitimate. I mean, I think that's pretty cool.
you
You get
know,
the incentive to go forth, further than most
yeah.
people at the time did.
I mean, a lot of it was spacing. A lot of it was spacing dependent, and but I don't know. It was just yeah, because I just sort of one of the things that I realized when I was sort of preparing for this podcast is when I first came up it was videos by Slim X, it was videos by Mopreme, and at the time I didn't even know Slim X was from Texas. When I first got into Third Strike seriously, so that's really cool. Another thing I remember Mopreme putting out the charge partitioning
Yep.
video or the charge buffering video of Remy. You remember that?
Hmm.
That was cool too. But but yeah, definitely, definitely. So I think this is a good time for a break now. And then when we come back, Haas, I want to talk a little bit about, kind of your return to Third Strike.
Okay.
It seems as though you sort of came back around when 3SO came out,
Yes,
which is
absolutely.
which is obviously for a lot of people that was kind of a turning point for them. And so we'll talk a little bit about your return to the scene and what you're sort of doing now, not just for Third Strike, for the other games. And then obviously we'll talk about Showdown. So once again, guys, you're watching the Mutant Experience podcast, episode 8 with Haas, and we will be back in a few minutes. Stay tuned, guys. All right, guys, this is Mutant XP, back with the Mutant Experience Podcast, Episode 8, with my special guest from Texas, Haas. So, Haas, so far, we've sort of covered the early days of Third Strike in Texas, and now you had mentioned before the break that you had sort of gone away from the scene. And how long were you away? Quite some time.
Almost 11 years. It's about 10 and a half years or so. Fall of '01 to like 2000. When did OE come out?
2011, I think.
Yeah, so maybe 10 years, maybe a little over, something like that. So
No, while you were away, I mean, come on, you had to have like watched videos though, like you sort of kept
yeah,
up a
of
little
course.
bit, right?
Watching videos and stuff like that, it's clips of like like a phone video or not phone, not even phone, but like Streak, for instance.
Hmm.
He was like an awesome player that knew Slimex pretty well, and he was one that would document a lot of stuff. He actually had, I think,
Oh
CaraThrow.com was,
shit, I remember Streak. Sorry. Oh
yeah,
god, I
yeah, no,
remember Streak.
yeah, Streak,
Damn, I
CaraThrow.com
forgot
was
about
like,
him too. Oh man.
so he made a lot of videos, a lot. And he'd have
Yeah.
a tripod and everything, and he'd have videos, and Slimex would send me those videos. And I did go back one time in '04, actually. They had
My
the
bad.
best.
I think Streak is the Shen before the Shen. Psychochronic was more like a Psychochronic was more like he covered everything. But Streak was the guy, right? Who had the Third Strike vids.
Yeah, Streak's cool, man. Yeah, he's actually a part of that Discord group that we were in
Oh,
the
awesome,
last
awesome.
night. He's in that Discord too, so he's a pretty cool dude. Really good player as well. Just really good at digging up data and making it happen and
Hmm.
making it easy for people to understand. But yeah, maybe I was out for like, I was watching videos. I came back for one. It was like best of old school, best versus best of new school, which is kind of funny because this is back in '04. So it's like the best of us versus the best of what '04 had.
Uh-huh.
I think the best of that time were like Mike Lai, a guy named Avril, and a couple other guys. And they were pretty good. They were pretty good, but it was not like Shin's level. You know what I mean? It
Hmm.
wasn't like I was impressed, but like I felt like the only reason I lost is because I was out of practice.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? Like I didn't feel like I was wowed, by I mean, they were still great players, don't get me wrong, but I
Hmm.
wasn't wowed. It wasn't like the shock factor that Shin had. You know what I mean? The thought process,
Hmm.
that he would provide to allow us to level up faster. So yeah, it was cool. I mean, I watched videos. I saw the Evo moment, of course. I think I had watched it in my was it engineering mechanics class, and like
Yeah.
I pulled it up, and then like everybody wanted to watch it too, and they crowded around. They're like, "Whoa, this is what is going?" They didn't even know what was going on. They're like, "Whoa, he's doing some crazy stuff. He's stopping everything she's doing," and and people were just going nuts. Like people didn't even play Third Strike. Were like, "This is insane." The Daigo moment like just blew everybody away. I remember it was like right before a major test that I had too, and it was really cool, man. It was really cool to see other people, get into that. During that time, I also had I had modded an Xbox, and I had done the EVOX or whatever mod, and I'd run like a FBA emulator on my Xbox with actual American arcade sticks plugged into the Xbox, so we could play like kind of a real SD, kind of, not arcade perfect, but better than a lot of the console ports at the time.
Hmm.
So we did that. I trained some people that were there, but they were just casuals. We did it for fun. It wasn't like they had the heart of like wanting to or the thirst for competition to where they wanted to really, go in and murder because we had no scene. I mean, there's no arcade there. We tried to create a scene with just people and students, but the time was wrong. The time was wrong. But
Hmm.
at least in that town, the way the town was organized, it was more of a party town. Nobody wanted to really take anything that seriously. So, but yeah, other than that, OE brought me back. I didn't even play that much. Since OE, I really didn't play like every day, really. I mean, like I haven't played daily for like several hours a day since like 2001 and
Hmm.
before. So like, I'll play like, when OE came out, I played like maybe like 30 minutes to an hour every day, and depended on my old technology to get me by, which actually worked really well when OE first came out, because most people didn't know how to deal with it. So it was, pretty pretty simple to get wins and stuff like that until people started figuring out, the tech and whatnot. But
Did
I
you
think
did you play sorry to interrupt real quick,
no, you're good.
but did you play Third Strike online with any other clients before OE?
Okay, so
Like,
before OE, okay, so back in '07,
mhm.
I went to Sin's. Sin was getting his master's degree in at Corpus Christi, Texas,
Uh-huh.
Southeast Texas, and he basically he's like, hey man, like you should come over and hang out with me. I just finished my big test. You and Sam come down and hang out. We'll play some games. And so I went over there, and he's like, dude, check out this online Third Strike. this program that supports like online 3S and other games. And I was like, what is this called? It was like GGPO. I was like, okay. And they showed it to me,
Sorry.
and we were playing. Oh, you're good.
Yeah.
And we were playing against a guy named what was it? There was this amazing Hugo that I've never seen such Hugo in my life. That good.
Okay.
But it was just like insane, and we can't remember what his name was. It was like I don't remember, but it was good times. Like it was really good times. We had fun on there. I felt like it was like a good experience.
Mhm.
I was like, wow, finally online Third Strike. You know, this is before OE, obviously.
Yeah.
And I played on and off, but I played more ST on GGPO
Mhm.
than I did Third Strike, just because I don't know. I mean, if I wanted to play 3S with buddies, like I just go to Austin and play at their place or something. You know, what I mean, it was more of
Yeah.
a casual like party kind of hangout. Wasn't anything like in a tournament scene or anything like that. So, but when OE came out, there's that big 2012 tournament, right? The Capcom 25th anniversary tournament.
Mhm.
And so I was like, you know what, I'll practice a little bit for this. So I did, and I didn't play all that well at the tournament. I was kind of mediocre, really, but it was fun to experience it again and kind of get back into it. And I got a lot of criticism from a lot of my friends saying that I was weak. You know, like you're weak compared to your old self. You don't have the fire you used to have. You're too kind. You're too happy for other players. And I mean, it's true. It's 100% true. Like I was like just happy to be involved in the scene again.
Uh-huh.
So I wasn't like as serious as I could be. I wasn't as cutthroat. Like back then, winning was not loss was not an option. Like if I missed like say one, I tell this story a million times. If I missed one drop, if I dropped one thing out of 100 things, I would step out of the arcade. I would think about really hard how the hell I could have dropped one thing out of 100, and why I dropped it, and why was my mind not in the right place. Like that's how I used to criticize myself when I used to play back in the day.
Mhm.
And then I took this other completely different like seesaw 180 effect when I came back mentality, and I realized that it wasn't enough to get wins in. I mean, it wasn't enough to be good again. And so I kind of felt like I've kind of been trying to navigate that middle ground where I can play a little bit, still try to get in people's heads here and there, but also still have some free time, not to play like 5 6 hours a day, but also have a life. And as you get older, you have more priorities, family and stuff like that, and
Mhm.
jobs, and if you're working like the hours that I have to work, then there's not really much time. So it's like if you don't have a job or something like that, sure, feel free, play all the First Strike you want or any fighting game you want. It's good for you, but it's not something I can do. I don't have the luxury of that anymore.
Mhm.
So, yeah, I'm not really like I'm not really, I would say, as practiced as I used to be. You know what I mean? Like I still have fun. I still have a good time. I like connecting with people, but I'm definitely not prepared, I guess you would say. Like I don't feel like I'm ready for Showdown right now. I'm not practiced enough ready for Showdown. Like I think that I really have to train against like when I prepare for a tournament, I basically pick out one person that I train against. It's Fu. Fu is my old training partner from Einstein's days. He was number 2 next to Shin,
Mhm.
and I was right behind him back in the beginning. And so I'll call Fu up and I'll say, hey man, like I want to play like a set like of like 30 or 40 games,
Mhm.
and we'll play like 30 or 40 games, and I'll be ready for a tournament. Like every time I've trained with him, I've won a tournament the next day.
Wow.
Every time. He's my old buddy, and he knows how to train me correctly. He knows how to piss me off and make me angry, and I play better when I'm angry.
Oh, do
So,
you?
mhm.
That's pretty rare.
No, I play extremely well when I'm really pissed off.
Okay. I hope someone triggers you at Texas Showdown.
We'll see. We'll see. I'm just happy to hang out there. I
Yeah.
think what I really need to do is practice more. That's all. But
Yeah. So when 3SO came out, what were your thoughts about, the build and everything? Because you're an old school Third Strike player, and then 3SO comes out. I mean,
right.
what were your reactions?
Well, okay. I was happy. I was
Uh-huh.
happy that people were able to connect more easily. And not have to worry about cross challenging and stuff like that through GGPO.
Uh-huh.
But I felt like it didn't play as good as a true arcade emulator. I mean, look at Co-op Cup. I mean, people argue this
Interesting.
point. People argue this point 24/7, where their OE is better than the emulator. But you have it straight from RKF's mouth. At Co-op Cup, emulator is better. Period. If it runs good, emulator is going to run better than 3S OE. Period. Hands down.
Hmm.
It should run better, just because the way by design it should run better.
Hmm.
But I mean, obviously, right now, Fightcade has some issues. It's not running like it used to run. When Fightcade first came out, it ran very similar to GGPO speed. It was very, very good. I can't say the same right now. Then again, people still argue with me on that point, saying that it's still perfect. I swore by Fightcade. I swore by it for a very, very long time. I
Mhm.
did. I swore by Fightcade for a very, very long time, and I thought that it was the future and stuff like that, and I thought that would be great. Hopefully this update that comes out is going to basically fix the issue
Mhm.
that it has right now, but we'll see. We'll see. But I mean, I remember when I heard RKF say that at Co-op Cup, though. He's like, no. He's like, emulator is number one, period. Unless you're playing on cab. I mean, obviously cab's number one, but like, as far as online goes, emulator like that runs well should be the closest thing to Arcade Perfect. And I have enough hours on a cab to say that for
Hmm.
sure.
Interesting. So let's talk a little bit about just you getting back into the scene and going to tournaments and stuff. And so what were some of the what were obviously you had this big layoff, and then you came back, and then there's just brand new players. And so how do you see your role in terms of guiding the third strike scene, this new generation, obviously both from Austin and Houston.
Well, okay, so it's kind of hard to say that because I try to be as involved as I can, but
Hmm.
also I lack a lot of time to be as involved as I want to be. You
Hmm.
know what I mean? So like I've missed a lot of the UFO tournaments. I've missed a lot of a lot of the old man Thursday nights, majority of them actually. A lot of stuff, a lot of the UFO meetups and stuff like that I missed out on. So I feel like it's I connect with the guys the best that I can, and I'm always like really happy to see them and stuff like that. But I feel like if I had more time on my hands, I could be more connected and maybe help more. But it's I don't know. It's
It is what it is, man. I mean, you get older, you have responsibilities.
yeah. I mean, like it kills me to say that because I every time I go to the arcade and I play in a UFO tournament or like I go and just hang out with the guys or see them at like a South by Southwest gaming festival or something. I'm just really genuinely happy to see everybody and really happy to connect and share stories and just play games and stuff like that. I generally like just love I love it so much, but I'm not able to be as involved as if I lived in Austin, shoot, if I was 5 minutes away from UFO, I'd be there pretty much every day, hands down, 100% for sure.
Really?
Yeah, absolutely. I'd be there with the guys playing 4 days a week, easy. But it's like an hour drive from here, and I just you lose 2 hours of your life just driving back and forth. It's
Hmm.
just too much time.
But you do try your best to go to the major events, and that brings us to Texas Showdown. And so,
Correct.
as we said at the beginning of the show, Texas Showdown. I mean, this might be what, like the 13th, 14th Showdown, maybe.
At least, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, I'd say so.
maybe. I don't know. I really should have researched that. My apologies. So, you know, uh, I know that last year you went to Texas Showdown, and you participated in ST and
Mhm.
Third Strike. And so obviously Texas Showdown is set to go down in May, May 4th through 6th, I believe. Those are the dates.
May 5th to 7th,
May 5th through 7th.
yes.
May 5th through 7th. And so you will be in attendance?
Yes, I'll be playing in both Third Strike tournaments and both ST tournaments.
Okay. And so, not to put you on the spot here, Haas, but at this stage in your life, which game do you enjoy playing more?
And this is being completely honest, all jokes aside,
Uh-huh.
I love them equally. I used to be an ST head. I've always, even over the years when I first played Third Strike and I performed well in tournaments in Third
Uh-huh.
Strike, I felt that like I still loved ST more.
Uh-huh.
But to tell you the truth, man, um, you know, are you talking just game itself, or are you talking about like community and the
Just
people as
everything, man,
well?
the whole experience. Because I don't think you
Okay,
could.
so
I
if
don't
you
think.
combine,
Because I don't think you could separate the two, really.
right, right, exactly. So if you combine everything,
Yeah.
all together, I would say Cam went out of focus for some reason. Let's see. But basically, I don't know. I feel like a more brethren connection with the Third Strike crowd. I felt like I made more friends, lifetime friends, through Third Strike.
Hmm.
So I have to say that if I lean one direction, and I hate to say this because so many years I believed otherwise. Like it was always 60-40, ST Third Strike 60-40, right? And I want to say it's skewed, but I want to say it's more like 55% Third Strike, 45% ST. Really,
Hmm.
realistically,
Yeah, and
I think.
and,
Yeah.
and 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 it's so cool that you say that, because there's been a lot of talk recently about how the Third Strike scene how they're viewed by other players from other scenes. You know, we've heard the narrative before, right? You
Right.
know, Third Strike players, they're cocky, they're elitist, they're stuck up, so forth and so on. But it's really cool for you to it's really cool for to to hear you say that, in terms of how you sort of made most of your friendships and relationships through Third Strike. Do you think it's just about the game? I mean, do you have any idea as to why that is, or
I think it's just the game. Honestly, if ST was in the arcade, let's say the ST was like, I don't
like
know.
for example, right? You had during the break. I don't know if you want to share this story or not, but you had told me your some of your experiences on IRC in those
Yes,
early days.
yes. I'm
Are
happy
you
to share
willing
that.
to are you willing to share that story?
Absolutely,
Okay.
absolutely. As a matter of fact, and this is a truth, 100% truth, and even Javier Moreno can vouch for me, and so can Slim X. When we first used to try to share tech on IRC in the Capcom channel, we would go in there and we would be like, okay, so check it out. We have this information, that we found out that you can now Kara throw in the game and stuff like that. And we would be, having discussions on IRC with each other. There'd be some guys from the West Coast that'd be interested.
Hmm.
Then there was some ops in the channel. I was actually an op of the Capcom channel with Javier Moreno and Mr. Wizard and those guys back in 99, 2000 on
Hmm.
IRC. And I actually got de-opt and banned from the channel for sharing Third Strike information.
What?
Yeah.
That doesn't make any
Yeah.
sense.
Yes, they kicked me. Yeah, specifically Mr. Wizard actually kicked me out. And
What,
he
Mister?
said Third Strike's a scrub game, and Texas is a bunch of scrubs. Texas sucks. I think he hates Texas. Is what it comes down to. I don't think it was
Oh,
so much
wait.
Third
Okay,
Strike.
because we hear that he hates Third Strike, he hates Texas. Does he hate both? I
I don't
mean,
know. I don't know, but the thing is, I got banned. I was an op, okay, an op in that channel, and I got kicked and banned for sharing data. And I wasn't even cussing. I was legitimately cool. I had not caused any drama. I was chill, But the thing is, they kicked me and banned me. And the funny thing is, actually, I left that channel and I was like, "F you guys! I'm gonna make an SF3 channel at IRC." So I did. And the first person to follow me before he even played Third Strike was Mopreme. Mopreme was the first person to follow.
mhm,
He followed me in that channel. He was like so loyal. Like it was like without question, Mopreme bailed out of Capcom channel and joined my SF3 channel IRC.
mhm,
And then I told Mopreme, I was like, you know what? Maybe it's not worth it. Like, what's the point in trying to create why separate this? Why try to, I mean, I want to create a ground where it's safe to talk about Third Strike without getting criticized. But at the same time, I want to, it's not worth it. It's not worth the trouble. It's not worth, getting butthurt over, So,
mhm,
but yeah, Moprin. This is before Moprin even touched the game really. Like he would maybe play when we weren't playing, and he would play like during like the daytime or something.
mhm.
But he was. I didn't even know who he was when that name joined the channel, and I was like, "Oh, Moprin, nice to see you in here," and stuff like that. And anyways, this just goes to show you how awesome Moprin is.
Yeah.
Moprin's legit, man. He's the real deal. So
And what's so interesting to me, at least, about that story, Haas, is even in the beginning days, there seems to have been a sort of dislike of Third Strike
right.
in the FGC. And so my next question is, do you think, you know, that may have something to do with the way, Third Strike players, people who really love the game and people like who really swear by the game. Do you think that may have sort of have had an effect as to how, they perceive other games and how they defend their game? Because, in the Third Strike Junkies post by Black, one of the allegations, one of the things that, he wrote in the post is that supposedly, you know, other other players from other scenes have heard or seen Third Strike players saying oh, Third Strike's the best, every other game is shitty and stuff like that. um and obviously I started sort of trying to explore, and again, the Eat podcast wasn't trying to call anyone out. It wasn't trying to, I wasn't trying to sort of pin the blame on one scene or another. I was just genuinely interested in like why this perception exists. So do you think that has something to do with, why Third Strike players appear so defensive or quote unquote elitist about the game because they've had to sort of defend it from the very beginning? Or do you think